So just to say a little bit about what we did. So basically it was an opportunity to gain awareness and insight into the Olympic preparation. And as I say, we went about 6 or 7 months out. So August, September of '09, I interviewed, and you've got the demographics there. We went to 6 sports and did 48 interviews, 4 high-performance directors, 12 coaches, and 32 athletes. Okay, so I've got this snapshot opportunity to talk to these guys and find out what is it like right now. What are you doing in your preparation for the games, 6, 7 months out? Okay. And then the second phase was more to look at that window of time, about a month before the Olympics, and then into the Olympics themselves, through the games, and then right after the games. Okay? And so, as a result of that, all of them were interviews, so no questionnaires. It was all sitting down and talking to people and gathering all this really, really great information, almost too much information at times. There was a lot of stuff that came out of it. And phase 2, as you can see on the slide, was 8 sports, 48 interviews, 6 high-performance directors, 11 coaches, and 31 athletes. And of those, you can see the breakdown of the medalists, top 10 finishes, and then those below the top 10. Okay, so that gives you an idea, anyway, of what happened and the nature of it. But most importantly, what came out of both of the phases repeatedly was this idea of the transitioning athlete. And I think what's been really important and really a key message to Own the Podium was the significance of this. And now we've got their buy-in. Hence opportunities like this and the programs that are being created. It's huge because the message was so strong, and the opportunity for me to go through all this in front of all the high performance directors from the winter sports, plus the Canadian Olympic Committee, plus all of On the Podium, to say we've got to support this better and get some better stuff behind it and making it happen for you guys. So that was really important and really key that we start to build this life services. So on the second slide over, I think it is, the main things that came out of during the training environment, so that period of time as you're preparing for the games, were the points that you can see there. So it's like the main recommendation or high-level sort of output was life outside of sport. So achieving a better balance while in sport, especially when things aren't going well, and if your sport is all you have. You seem to increase the intensity, which makes things worse. Okay, so as a sort of summary comment, that's what came out of the training period when people were kind of not quite where you guys are now for the Summer Olympics, but getting close. Okay, and then the second piece was post-games. Some really interesting conversations there, and the first comment is sort of all these comments are sort of merges of different people saying things and just sort of pulling their information together. And I had 2 of our Canadian gold medalists basically in their interview in tears explaining how they didn't have a plan and how upsetting and frustrating it was. And a merge of a couple of their comments was what you have in front of you. So having a post-game plan, I didn't have one. And this is because I interviewed these guys within a month, within 3 to 4 weeks of the games finishing. So still then feeling messed up and depressed. Spent my whole life thinking about the games, and days away from competing, I realized it was all coming to an end and I panicked. I knew this was not the time to be thinking about this, but really in a blink of an eye it was all going to be over and I had nothing planned. So that's more than one person making a comment like that. And for a couple then, it was actually in the village in Vancouver, they had this moment of, in 3 days I'm done, and had no idea what they were going to step into and turn to once they were finished. Okay, so that was one area, one comment, or one area of comments that sort of came together. And then the other one is, I wish I had a plan for those times when you don't achieve, so you don't feel abandoned or dropped. There was no transition. So again, that's sort of amalgamation of a few of the athletes' comments around their lack of planning. And this was interesting, having a plan for while the games are still on, but you're done. So if you're a week 1 athlete and you're done for week 2, what are you going to do? And I kind of what I did, and I don't remember much of week 2, so I can kind of get you what most people do, but maybe shortly after that. And that was kind of fun, because I did actually ask everybody in their interviews what they did immediately after the event was finished, the next day, and then the week after, and then the month after. And that's where some of this stuff came out. So this having a plan while the games are still on, but you're done, and for immediately after the games. There was no planning post the games, no exit strategy from the games to Europe. This led to high stress. So in the context for a lot of the winter sports is their season wasn't done once the Olympics were done, which is slightly different to a lot of most summer sports where we're kind of done after the games. Although athletics isn't, is it? I think. Who are athletics here? Yeah. Don't you have to have world championships sometimes after Olympics?
Sometimes there's some of the major racing cups
afterwards. But
I don't know.
Well,
how you call it after.
Right. But kind of unbeknownst to me, a lot of the winter sports will carry on through into March and into April to finish their seasons. A lot of them had national championships in April, early April, like in Calgary. So there was a significant lack of planning for people who were leaving Vancouver and going on and carrying on to finish their season, and points at stake, lots of reasons they got to get back to Europe and keep racing, but there were no plans at stake. And that comment was not just athletes, but linked to that was the coaches, and the coaches not knowing what they were doing. And so a real sense of abandonment for a lot of people as they came to the end of the Vancouver Games and not really knowing what to do. And part of that problem was the fact that the national sport organizations hadn't created these plans beforehand to look beyond the games. So one of our big messages as well is that we're not operating in 4-year cycles. We're actually just operating in ongoing cycles. And if we start putting ends to the programs, we get into these particular situations. So really now encouraging sports, the NSOs, all of your governing bodies, to look beyond the games, if not just continuously, at least 6 months, to have support and plans for all of you guys as you head into the games, through them, and then out the other side as well. So really, folks, in a nutshell, that was what I wanted to share with you. It was a really interesting process, lots of really valuable information. But as I say, this was the one point that came up repeatedly during the training environment, so that window of 6 or 7 months before the games, and then it came out again during the games interviews. None of the other points, and I've highlighted some other recommendations on there, that came out from the whole report. But it was interesting that was the only one that repeated itself. So I think the message has gone out. On the Podium have listened, and we're now getting and building more of a life services program across the country in the Canadian sports centres in an effort to have opportunities like this. Just raise your awareness right now that life does continue on after the Olympics, and sport, and what that might look like for each of you. And even if you don't act on anything in the next 8 months, 10 months, if the seed's been planted and you can just start to think about that a little bit and be comfortable with that. So September 2012, maybe you just decide then what you're going to do. It's such an individual process, which I think these guys will highlight on. But I think the opportunity to increase your awareness of it is really important, and that's what we're here to do this evening. So I think that's it for me. So that's